Hola! Wish to tell you why it's such a good day. Sun shining, trees are eating CO2, got clean water, at least some of us do. As a disclaimer, I just wish to say I really love this nation. We could have been the greatest, man. And it's really depressing to see how we're being dragged down. And like Adam in Toronto says, he said the other day, that Toronto's gone full retard. Well, this country is being run by full retards. And we're eating it. And people just don't know what to do. My first thing is that we have to come back together as a community, as a people, as a nation, within the nation, and start creating a republic constitution. As simple as that. Alberta, you're not going anywhere without a constitution. Saskatchewan, you're not going anywhere without a constitution. Manitoba, constitution. The parts of BC, if it's northern BC, southern BC, interior BC, constitution. Have to. And fight tooth and nail as a solid front. Build a constitution that you can believe in and stand on. That's the bottom line. Otherwise, we're being picked off as individuals. Because Canada owns all the communities. It's part of their corporate body. But they can't own man. They can't own mankind. And if mankind stands up and creates a constitution of, for, and by, Canada has no standing. They can maintain their position, but we can kick that over real quick. So anyways, I've done a few vids since my last one. I just wasn't happy with any of them. The truck was too noisy, and blah blah blah. And somebody got a hold of me and said, "Hey, can you do a little bit more on the private prosecutions?" Well, sure I can. Once upon a time, there was a land of. Okay, well, imagine this. Imagine you live on a land, and the land is basically run by the people. Imagine that the people were sovereign, and the one man or woman that was appointed sovereign to represent the people as sovereign. So the people knew they were of the land, and they had the one that was allowed to act as the chief, say, public servant, was also of the land. And the chief public servant served the people at his or her leisure, at his or her pleasure. And so that everything created of the people after that time were their creation, and therefore public servants. And the people of the land, as they went through with this kingdom and developed this kingdom, the customs of the people grew within that kingdom, and not just grew within that kingdom, but were adopted into the kingdom as a way that people have already lived for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and being recognized that everyone has an inalienable right, everyone has an inherent right, everyone has a fundamental right, and that the creation of this kingdom must adhere to those rights. And so any public service, public law must also recognize the right of mankind and the customs of the people. So basically, that was the beginning, of the UK, the United Kingdom. And and they pretty much, because Rome ran part of that neighborhood for a while, but it was Roman civil law, which actually did get lost for a while until Napoleon got a hold of it and revamped it, which is today's civil law. It's a revamp of Roman civil law, which was a revamp of civil law going way, 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 way back, millennials. And I'm not saying anything bad about it, but personally, I've always believed in the common law and that God created man and man created government to protect property of man. That everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And the fact that we even have laws in the books that, they don't talk about man or mankind, but they talk about the person within the act. But the only problem is now people, instead of voluntarily acting as that person, are being coerced, blackmailed, extorted to act as that person, so that the public servant can now dominate over the person, because the person was created by our public service, and now they can act as God over that person, and therefore just act willy-nilly over their lives. And their big excuse is, well, we're not harming those of mankind. That person runs under my jurisdiction, therefore I have a right to benefit the person under my jurisdiction so that it doesn't happen again. And that's basically what these guys do to us. Or what we allow to do to it. There has to be consent. And so, because the legal society plays in word games, they are word nerds, and they operate in two different languages. So, on one hand, they have their legal terms, and on the other hand, they have common English. So I don't know. It was somewhere around about 1,000 years ago or so, just under. As the kingdom. Well, okay. So prior to that, after the Romans were tossed, you got to understand that the Celts were on the mainland, the original Celts, and it was customary of the people of the Celtic peoples that if you did wrong, you owed the man or woman that you did wrong to compensation for the wrong, for the trespass. And so it would be brought up before the village, the elders or the chief, and therefore it would be judged by, like I say, village elders or chief, or all the above, to decide whether you were on base or off base, whether you were guilty, that you owed a debt, debt. Guilt is debt. Charge. I love that word, charge. But anyways, and whether you were guilty of the charge or not, and you were presumed innocent. So you had your accuser, and you had a verifiable witness, independent witness, somebody that wasn't friends or related to the accuser that did witness the wrongdoing, and then you had the so-called wrongdoer. And so it was judged on that matter, and if you were found to owe the debt, if you were found guilty, then you owed that man or woman that you did cause harm, loss, or injury to. Now this spread throughout the islands, and was basically the foundation. And because, this goes way past the Celts. This goes to the beginning of mankind, this stuff, right? But in modern history, this is basically the making of England, the foundation of England. And as the Celts were run out and of the area we call Germany today and the area we call France today, and moved to the islands. And then they revamped civil code around Napoleon's time. They found the old Roman civil law and they revamped it into what's called today's modern civil code, which is Napoleonic civil law. And but meanwhile, on the Isles, we had the common law, and the common law is, well, the customs of the people. So, like, if it was your custom for many, many years to do something, you weren't causing harm, loss, or injury to anybody, and it was your custom, they couldn't hang you for the offense, even though society decided that, or somebody in society, to make this illegal. And it's like, well, no, this is my custom. And so you could be found not guilty by a trial of your peers. Now, the whole trial system's another story. But you could be found, not guilty by a trial of your peers. Well, no, this is the way he's always been. This, his dad was this way, his granddad was this way. This is the way they act, and they've never caused anybody harm. We've always thought they were a little crazy, but that's their fucking business. And say, okay, not guilty, right? So, in the early days, so say about 1,000 years ago, around-ish, what it was the men were put in groups of 10, or not just put in groups of 10, but there would be 10 men. Every 10 men in society would be responsible for each other's actions, basically to keep the public peace. And that way, yes, you were your brother's keeper. And that way, if I saw my neighbor and he was part of the 10, I saw him like going to do something that could cause harm, loss, or injury to my other neighbor or whatever, I could go and say, look, man, and I could call the other 8 over and say, hey, look, buddy's doing this shit and he needs to stop it, and we could shut it down. To prosecute somebody back in the day was a citizen's duty, responsibility, and obligation. All right, so just as a citizen, it was your duty, obligation, responsibility, and it still is. We have kept this custom. This is a common law land. This is a Judeo-Christian nation. Those are the basis of our laws, and that's where no harm, loss, or injury basically comes from. That everyone has a right, as long as you're not causing harm to your fellow man. That you owe no duty, obligation, or responsibility to your public service and to society as a whole, except for to the government, to the protection of your property, and to your society to cause no harm, loss, or injury to your fellow man. And this is where basically torts, come from, which is, wrongs, wrong. To get into the wrong is like you're sitting there thinking about how you can fuck somebody over. That's what a wrong is, How can I fuck someone? And just because you can legally fuck somebody over and get away with it doesn't make it not wrong. Just because it's legal doesn't make it lawful. And that's really, really important. But, we're lazy, we're gainsaying, we're a spoiled nation. And if you don't believe me, take a look around at society today. What happened to those 2 young ladies at high school the other day? I mean, just take a look what's going on. What happened to that grandmother? Why is oh man, this country, like Adam says, Toronto's gone full retard. We have gone full retard coast to coast. We have gone full retard coast to coast. Oh man, we do not deserve shit. The only thing I can see that's really going to bring this nation back together is if we fall into some very, 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 very hard times. And you know what? I think we are. It really frickin' looks like it. So back to the private prosecutions. So it's a citizen's duty, right, and obligation to do a private prosecution. It is mainly there also, and not just to keep the peace within, say, your own neighborhood, but it is there to make sure that our public servants stay in check, and that's why it's so important. Now, it doesn't matter so much about the facts of the case, but the merits of the case. So if you're going to do a private prosecution, basically, you need, of course you need some facts of the case, but what are the merits of the case? Well, the merits of the case are basically, I have witness testimony firsthand. Okay? Well, they're standing. That's a merit. The case now has standing. The fact that I have 2 or 3 independent verifiable witnesses gives me more standing. The fact that I have this on film gives me more standing. And those are the merits, or some of the merits. So you got to find a JP. Getting in, say, a JP is hard. So back in the day, what would happen is you would go and swear out an information. Well, this is how it still is, but you go swear out an information that somebody has done wrong, and there's a difference between indictable offense and summary offenses. Now, summary offense may only be provincial, like within Canada, it's provincial summary offense, but it still can be escalated into an indictable offense. So, like, and that's why I say, like, you know, it may be a provincial offense. Say, well, it used to be a provincial offense, say, to have weed, but could be also looked at as an indictable offense. So, you know, they might come after you on the provincial side, and you know, you can have summary court, or they may escalate it into an indictable offense. Now, what we used to have was grand juries to decide whether there was enough merits to the case to indict you to go to court. And so I think 1975, I don't think there's any grand juries left in Canada. I think it was 1975 and 1977 that the grand juries ended here altogether. And back in the day, there was no AG either, no attorneys general. So it was the citizen's responsibility to prosecute a case. So they did make, I think it was in, I don't know, mid-1400s, they did make for a private prosecutor, public prosecutor. No, that was the, they did make the AG. I think it was 1435 or 1450 or something like that. They did create an AG over there in Mary Old. And so, but he would take on like more of the severe cases, and private prosecutions were still going on hand. Private prosecutions are still used today, like a corporation or an agency or a society can do a private prosecution. Like if you look at, if you've ever had problems, say with, well, I don't know, say an agency that operates for the government and they go to prosecute you and you find out it's a lawyer's firm that they used, well, that's a private prosecution. So they're just hiring a lawyer to run as the prosecutor, which you can do also. You can have a lawyer run as your prosecutor. You can run as your prosecutor. You can have co-counsel, so on and so forth. The problem is, though, they run all this stuff through the criminal code, which is federal, and everything's codified. It's good to look up the laws. Like if you find a code, then it's good to look up the law, because every code was written off a law, right? And the law is written on parchment paper, right? And it's folded up and it's put away in a safe place, and that's where the law stands. So Thomson Reuters, and I think they've done it for 100 years for us anyways, and the States and England, maybe even longer. Actually, it might even be a lot longer. But the company, Thompson's, they are the ones that are hired to codify our laws. So, but you look at the criminal code, it's a codification of the law. What does the law actually read? And who does the law pertain to? And now that's what's really, really important. Because if you take a man or a woman who's acting as a codifier, they may leave some important stuff out of the code. And so people think that, like that is always a good thing to ask. I mean, if you are at court, private prosecution, public prosecution, who cares? It's really good to ask, do you believe I broke the law? Yes. Do you believe I broke the law? Yes. Do you believe I broke the law? Yes. Is the law before the court? Well, we don't have time for that. And that's what you usually get. But you need to press it. You need to stand and say, whoa, hang on a second here. Now, are you guys lying to me? Saying I broke the law? Or did I actually break the law? Well, the criminal code says this. Well, that's a codification of the law. You didn't say I broke a code. You said I broke the law. Now let's see the law. Where is the law? Is the law before the court? And then you can, wish to and require the court to dismiss the charges until such time as the law comes before the court. A charge dismissal is just that. It's a dismissal. It can be brought back up, guys. Now, just because you got a dismissal, a stay is a stay. But within a stay of charges or stay of proceedings, there's only a certain amount of time before it can't be brought back up again. And I don't want to get too far off my thought pattern for the private prosecution. So, so basically it was the citizens that did the private prosecution to begin with. Pretty much statutory by nature. Tort is pretty much common law by nature, but there are statutory torts. So if you look under Canadian torts, you'll find all the statutory torts. You need to do the research to find out what the common law torts are. And don't forget that the legal, right, statutory legal, right? Legal is a mirror image of lawful. So it is two-dimensional and applies to persons. But it may not apply to the man or woman unless they were acting as that person at that time. And that's really important to know. You must be acting as that person at that time, And they presume you to be because, well, a most excellent, perfect officer just brought you there. But then again, is the officer the one who filled out the information or filed the information? Or is the officer the witness? Or is the officer both? Because I don't think you can be the plaintiff and the witness. Right? And this is what they do to us quite a bit. You always have a right to face your accuser. Even within the legal society, the plaintiff must appear. Right? Now, I have a right to face my accuser. I have a right to cross-examine my accuser. At some time during this court, my accuser must show up. Otherwise, I require the discharge of all the charges. And a discharge is different than a dismissal, because a dismissal can be brought back up. It's like standing before your superior and, okay, you're dismissed. Well, he can call you back at any time. Same as the court. Court works the same way. Now they have a dismiss with prejudice, dismiss without prejudice. But a discharge is a discharge. I mean, it's gone. It's discharged. It's like debt. The debt's been discharged. Debt doesn't exist anymore. And you have a right as man to require certain things, and you have a right as mankind to wish certain things, and you have a right as mankind to believe what you wish and require of yourself to believe. And nobody can tell you what to believe. It's like that young lady at high school. Was it yesterday, the day before? Her and her friend get booted out because they didn't want to wear rainbow poppies. And then in the policy guys, okay, of that particular school is that this school believes, well, hang on, a school can't believe. A school is a brick and mortar, okay? It can't believe shit. So don't tell me. An officer can't believe shit. You know, I read in the statutory laws, well, if the officer believes, well, no, only a man can believe. And an officer can't do shit because an officer doesn't exist. It's a uniform in the corner, okay? A school can't perform anything either unless there's a man or a woman performing as the person within the school. So the policy, when I read the policy for that school that those young ladies in Manitoba got booted out of because they wished to wear the proper poppy to honor our forebears and the sacrifice they made for our freedoms and many, many other people's freedoms, including Greta Thunberg's freedom. That you know it became they just believe it's hate speech. And see, the policy, is the policy over law of the land? Is the policy over a statute of an act? You know, because you have the enactment that allows the schools to operate this. The school policy override that enactment. And you have what they call the Supreme Constitution, the Supreme Law of Canada. Does the enactment override the Supreme Law of Canada, which everybody calls the Constitution and the Charter? So these are things that are really, really important. What's happening is the establishment, people within, a man or woman within the establishment, have decided to create policies that are unconstitutional and policies to which they have no right to enforce. So I know I just got off the private prosecution, but this really bothered me. Like, you cannot force these young ladies to believe anything, and your school can't believe shit. Now, if the man or woman who acts as the principal, a man or woman who acts as the teacher believes something, you have no right to force your belief down those kids' throats. Now, the customs of their people, which is the highest law of this land, is to wear the red, black, and green poppies. The red, green, red, black, and green. You know, the proper poppy that it was intelligently designed for by those of us who believe in the sacrifice that our fathers and our cousins and uncles and aunts and brothers and sisters made on our behalf and on behalf of folks thousands and thousands of miles away. We paid a dear price for this shit. So who is this man or woman at the school that believes they can enforce and therefore afflict these young women, this young woman and her friend, stress, mental stress, and public besmirchment of their good names, slander upon these two. You know? Well, they don't have a right, and their policy is wanted. And therefore, if I was the father, the author of those kids, and that's what father is, an author is the father of something, you know. If I was the author of those kids, not the parent, the author, the father, I would definitely take those, every man and woman that has afflicted, that has done wrong to my property, to my kids, and haul their ass into court for a tort. In common law, it's not slander or like in statutory tort, it's mental stress and slander and stuff, but in common law it's called outrage, which covers all that. And it's a common law tort of outrage is what it is. Now, regardless whether it be statutory style or common law style, I would still have their asses